I'd like to give this episode 5 of Dexter New Blood, a high score because I really enjoyed the episode. It was entertaining. It was I think every episode, in my opinion, for the most part, is kind of, I guess, better than the last, in a way. But yeah, I really did enjoy this episode. I'm a little late in responding to it, but it's been on my mind all week, just a little bit about it. So now is like the perfect time, I think, to finally record this, but and talk about and do my review on it. What I felt from the episode was I really did enjoy Angel Batista coming back. Also, it was nice having an old character come back. Also, the music was very odd in this show. The music is just kind of, I don't know. I guess the music is meant to fit the show, and the vibe it's supposed to give off and everything. And so, in this episode, I noticed that there was a difference. There was more of a life to the music. They added the pianos and a couple of keynotes and sounds that referenced old Dexter, and I noticed that through the music that it was going back to sort of like the first episode, what the first episode was kind of about, which was when you revisit the past, then that's when elements of the past start to come back. And, if you know about the whole number sequence, anyway, like usually the fifth episode of anything, or, is usually like a pinnacle, like any season or show or something. 5 is usually that episode that takes everything from the previous and brings it all together, and it also introduces a sense of new also, and just it brings things. So watching episode 5, I kind of knew that, okay, this is going to be sort of like a high point of the series, what we know so far and what has been seen, just things like that. So so yeah, so it was really nice seeing some references, seeing Batista, seeing some things from the past, from old Dexter coming back up, including the music and just some of the elements, and it was just great overall. One of the deeper things I got from this episode, that if I can remember most of them or some of them. But the main thing I noticed is a lot of the storylines or the plots or the action sequences and things like that really revolved around the same idea. And I'll try to explain it as best as I can. But the idea that I kind of got was going against our moral code or our beliefs or whatever, our rituals, how we think we need to do things, what our instincts, I guess, tell us to do, and just doing the exact opposite of that. And I noticed that a couple times in this episode. Dexter, I don't know, maybe a stretch, but Dexter talking with Harrison at the beginning, and which I'll go back to that because I have another thing to say about that. But Dexter talking with Harrison at the beginning and saying, I think you're going through something and I'm here to talk. You can trust me, things like that. I'm not sure that's out of reach of Dexter's character, which obviously it's not, but that just seemed something that Dexter maybe wouldn't do. If he hadn't really had his son, he probably wouldn't say, hey, talk to me. You're probably going through something. Let me try and help you. He'd probably just, I don't know, do something else. But in that moment, I kind of got that same vibe that Dexter was going against, I guess, a type of code that he followed. And instead, he did the opposite by, instead of just, throwing his son out in the spotlight and saying, hey, this doesn't match like this doesn't do this, you did this to this kid, to the shooter and everything. I forgot I actually didn't record a review for episode 4. So anyway, Dexter didn't call him out, and I think that that's something Dexter would do, is he got the evidence and he would call him out. But he did the exact opposite with Harrison, and instead of calling him out, he just said that I'll talk with you because you may be going through something, and that brings more of a humanity side of Dexter out. So I actually enjoyed that. Also, when the girl was in the cabin and she was on the camera, and the dude was, and she was in front of the camera, and she started taking her shirt off, and the guy was like, "Hey, this isn't what this is about," and she was like, most people in that situation would probably scream or cry. It was probably her first instinct, and she didn't do that. She just decided to take her clothes off and stay cool about the whole thing. And the guy was like, that's not what this is about. It's not the thing. And then he opens up the door. He's like, "You're free to go." First instinct or first reaction or thought would be, okay, freedom, run out. But she didn't. She stayed back and went against her instincts and said, "No, make me." And then he came after her. Instead of her being scared, she actually tried to fight back, instead of just trying to not fight back with what she did. And then he threw her out into the forest, into the snow, and said, "Run," and she didn't run. She didn't run away. She ran toward him, doing the exact opposite as what her instincts probably would make her do. And also, the sniper, I guess that's his official name, I think, the sniper, he did his ritual, he did his thing, put the girl in the thing in the room, and then let her go. I guess marinating her with fear, as something Pennywise would do. Anyway, so yeah, then he would let him go, let his victims stay in that room. Then he would let them go, and as they run, then he would sniper them. But this didn't happen this time. She actually fought back with him, and it messed up his whole thing, messed up his whole deal. And the sniper was upset about it. One other thing that I can remember. Oh yeah, and Dexter, trying to find a victim who wasn't a killer, but was actually, just a drug dealer, drug maker. He just made the drugs, but that was also against Dexter's regular code, or I guess instincts or whatever. Was he usually goes after killers, but he didn't this time. Went after a different person. And I guess the last one I could say, which revolved around the idea of doing the exact opposite, would be when Kurt was talking with Harrison, and they were at the diner, and Kurt said, "Hey, someone's upsetting you, someone's pissing you off. If you don't like what they're doing, if you're fighting, then do something kind for that person, especially if you don't want to." That was another. That's probably the last one I can say about that. But yeah, this episode really, I got that from this episode, going against the normal coding or normal reaction to things, or yeah, just if you're feeling a certain way or you do things a certain way, what happens when you do the exact opposite. And yeah, it's also one thing I also kind of felt from it was, a strong sense of humanity can actually come out of doing that. When we do things one way, and when we do things one way, then sometimes we'll get lost in that routine. And when we end up doing something outside of that character, something different, sometimes it can be chaotic, and sometimes it won't work out. Sometimes it can be chaotic and won't work out. But at the same time, it can also make a situation more fulfilling. It can actually make a situation better. It can actually fix a situation. But I don't want to speak too much on that, because in this episode, things kind of didn't work out for the most part. But the reason why I say it brings a sense of humanity is because another message I got from this episode was when we have our dark side and we have our light side, each side kind of has its own realm, its own mentality. When we're in one state of mind, sometimes we're in the other state of mind dominantly at times. And in this episode, it was more like, what happens when you are in a dark state of mind, and a piece of the light side ends up getting sucked into that, like, every darkness kind of originates from some sort of light in some way. But when you're in the dominant darkness part, how does the light actually affect the darkness? And when the two end up sort of blending together, what can that create? Not coming together to create something new, but more of what if one leaks into the other? And I saw that with Kurt's character. He was a nice person, and when he was in his dark dominant state of mind, when he was, wait, who? Oh, the sniper. When the sniper was, yeah, in the dark dominant state of mind, then he wanted things to go a certain way because that's how things go when he's in his dark state of mind. That's the routine. But then the light side leaked into that, and he had remorse, and he felt bad, and he was like, oh no, what did I do? And that was a sense of humanity actually coming out. And same thing with Dexter, Dexter's dark side, being a killer, and the light side, wanting to protect someone that he loved, that came out. And, yeah, it's just how that came out, I thought that was very interesting how, we have our dark state of mind and light state of mind. When the two when one leaks into the other, the chaos or what that can create. Also with Harrison, I think this was the episode with Harrison at the party. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure it is the episode when Dexter when Harrison went to the party. Like I said, I did never recorded episode 4, so the episodes are kind of blended together in my head. But anyway, so Harrison was at the party, and he was saying that he doesn't deal with drugs or anything like that. He had his problems with it. He's done with it. But in this episode, I believe he ended up doing the exact opposite of what he normally would do, which was stay away from drugs, stay away from the social, and he ended up doing the exact opposite. And I think I think what leaked into him making that decision was his emotions, how he felt and everything. And I think that his emotional side, his feelings leaked into his dark side, and that's what led him into, but anyway, but yeah, so one thing I can say about this episode, though, is for most of the scenarios, when they did the exact opposite of what they normally would do, it did bring a stronger sense of humanity into their experiences and into their world. And it did introduce a new idea into each individual person, and it allowed them to get to know themselves on a different level. Potentially, it's, I can't really speak too much on that because it's only one episode, but potentially, it did kind of do that in its own way. But things seem to have not worked out, or seem to have been very bad. But even though things worked out bad, yeah, it's kind of hard to speak on this because the girl actually got shot. But when we do the opposite and things do go bad, that does bring more humanity within our world, and we can grow from that, and we can get to know ourselves better from that. That's just what I got from this episode. I don't want to be a preacher. I'm just giving my review on what I felt from the episode as I'm watching it. And as I've explained before in other recordings, when I watch something, I don't just watch it for entertainment. I watch it and have experiences. So this is literally my experience watching this episode, is what I'm explaining right now. So yeah, just sharing my experience. And so I'm not sure what else I really felt from it. Yeah, this is what I mostly got, was just doing the exact opposite of what you normally would do, and how it can help us get to know ourselves in different ways, how doing the exact opposite of what we would normally would do could end bad. It can also bring us more sense of humanity. Um, I want to go back and talk about Harrison real quick, and this might be my last thing. Anyway, I want to. Oh yeah, and Dexter's girlfriend Angela. Angela went to New York. She normally would just stay in Iron Lake and do her thing, but then she went against what she normally would do and followed the podcaster and went to New York and met Batista and then got involved in the whole Dexter situation. So that's another thing that fits into the theme of doing the exact opposite of what you would do and having a type of rediscovering of oneself once you do the opposite of something that you normally would do. And in the part where Dexter and Harrison were talking at the beginning of the episode, sometimes when we want to talk to, I'll try to explain from both point of views. When we try to talk to our kids, and we try to say, "Hey, I'm here for you," and sometimes a kid will just be upset for you going through their stuff or something like that, and they just don't want to talk about certain things. Sometimes sometimes in a kid's mind, which sometimes the idea that we want our parents to have, or sometimes when we are who we are, we're just not ready for our parents to really invade that realm of who we are just yet. Some things we have to hold on to within ourselves, and sometimes we're just not ready to open up. At least to the parents, anyway. From the other point of view, sometimes kids will just not be willing to talk. I know you mean well, you want to be there for kids, but sometimes they need an outside force or they need an outside influence. There's a boundary, a relationship, a foundation that is there between a child and a parent. And sometimes what a child may be going through is something that they need to go through as an individual, not to be seen or looked at as a child, but something that they're going through as an individual. And sometimes having sometimes having outside help is what they need, and sometimes going to maybe life or someone can offer them some kind of advice or offer them what they need in order to really grow or to really help them out as an individual. As parents, we, I guess, want to fix things always, and we always want to have control, but the thing is, we don't always have control over anything, especially a kid that's a human being. And a lot of times as parents, they'll treat their child like it's their property. And they'll say, "Oh, this is my child. I will treat them how I want to." And people will say, "Well, no, you're going to mess them up." It's like, I don't care. It's my child. I want to pierce my child. I can. If I want them to follow this religion, this belief system, I'm going to do it. And to stay on point, this episode I noticed a lot was about losing control. We all have that persona, that face that we are, and sometimes we get desperate to the point where we need to control something, and we'll sometimes create scenarios or try and justify them or whatever just to be in control. And sometimes things just aren't in control, and we act out, we do different things to try and regain control. And things just sometimes just aren't in our control all the time. And that kind of goes into the doing the exact opposite of what you normally would do, because when we're stuck in a certain routine, that's like a world that we think that we've mastered, and then when we do the exact opposite of what we normally would do, then that's we're in like a situation that's like, oh, I don't really have control over this because I've actually done something different, and now I need to try and figure this out. But anyway, that's my review for Dexter New Blood episode 5, and it was a good episode. And I hope this recording helps whoever listens to it.